Okay, welcome everyone. We'll declare the agenda briefing session open, and welcome back to 2023, and special welcome to Councillor Caboni for agenda briefing session. After one last year, you're kicking off in nice style. We're like
it's a big year out of you this year.
It is. We're penciling it in, so don't let us down. Okay, disclaimer. Agenda briefing sessions are used to inform councillors on the items of business to be presented and discussed at the forthcoming Ordinary Council meeting. These meetings are open to members of the public who may request to present a deputation to Council relating to an item on the agenda. No decisions are made at these meetings, although councillors can request additional information or alternative wording be provided to allow for motions to be prepared for consideration at the forthcoming Ordinary Council meeting. Any statement regarding any planning or development application made during an agenda briefing session is not to be taken as notice of approval. Anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of the application and any conditions attached to the decision made by Council. An audio and visual record will be made by means of live streaming of these proceedings and uploaded to the Shire's YouTube page for viewing. Acknowledgement of country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. And we pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and of their cultures, and to elders past, present and emerging. Item 2, record of apologies and leave of absence. Of apologies from Councillor Jackson, and Councillor Burgoyne is zooming in. Leave of absence is nil. Item 3, declarations of members and officers' personal interest. Councillor Dickinson.
Yes, thank you. I declare impartiality for 7.2.1 Bunbury Harvey Regional Council revised cost of the new limestone business case, as I am the Council Delegate and Deputy Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Brom.
Yes, I do. And I'll stay in the chamber and vote on this matter.
Councillor Caboni.
Item 5.1.1, Harvey Brunswick National Footy Club lease. I'm a member of Harvey Brunswick Footy Club. I'll deal with it on partiality, and stay in council and deal with it on its merits.
Councillor Crispin.
Same as Councillor Wendy Dixon, 7.2.1, as I am a deputy on the Bunbury Harvey Regional Council, stay in chambers.
Councillor Campbell.
Oh, thank you. Item 5.3.2, declare an impartiality interest. As I know the person that resides at the recommended RV site in Brunswick, so I'll deal with it on its merits and stay in chambers. Thank you.
Okay, item 4, deputations, nil. Item 5, officers' reports. Item 5.1.1, lease Harvey Brunswick Leschenol Football Club. We have a couple of questions from Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to staff for responding to my questions already and providing that information. My first question is just seeking confirmation on the establishment of this sinking fund. I interpret the officer's report as Harvey Brunswick Leschenol Football Club's commitment to be approximately $18,000 per year for replacement at the 20-year mark. Is that correct? And I also asked whether the club was in a financial position to meet that commitment.
I'll just ask the Renee, our governance and risk coordinator, to answer that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Through Mr. President, in regards to the figure that is in the report, it has been calculated from the life cycle of the lighting information that was provided by Kirsty, Director of Lifestyle and Community. in regards to if the club has funds to cover that. Kirsty has commented and advised that they've acknowledged it on the grant application. Did you want to elaborate in that respect further, Kirsty?
Thank you, and also through the chairs. So I have provided the balance sheet and P&L from the club that was submitted with the grant application, but it's possibly not in the Shire's best interest to determine whether a club is financial enough or not, because there might be circumstances that we're not aware of. But we've provided that information for council to make a determination accordingly. Thanks.
So, Mike, do you want me to go through continue on with my questions? Question 2 was, should the lease be delayed until the management of the recreation space is determined and then actually included as part of the lease? Because we're incorporating any changes to the lease around the creation of this account be an additional cost to the club for amending the lease.
The condition, sorry, through the chair, the condition has actually been budgeted for in the report of that one condition. However, furthermore, once the strategy is in place, I don't believe the condition should change in the lease. However, the budget implications have been advised in the report to account for that drafting of that condition to be added to the lease.
And my final question was, is the Shire considering applying similar requirements or sinking funds or reserves or whatever for other sporting and community groups that lease buildings and utilise Shire recreational infrastructure to ensure they have a reserve account in order to contribute to these future asset improvements and replacements? And is there a report coming to council regarding a council policy or direction around this?
I can get that one for you, thanks. Thank you, Councillor, and through the chair. So the intention is that yes, there will be sinking funds applied to all sporting and community recreation leases in the future. We do note that we have already provided a lot of that formal correspondence through the Sport and Rec Advisory Group and other key meetings. So it's not a new conversation, and clubs are aware of its purpose to assist in future planning and strategic building their capacity financially into the future. We also note that a one-size-fits-all approach possibly won't work, but we do hope that Sport and Rec strategy, which will have supporting policies, may provide a framework or some structure that may help guide that. We anticipate that might be a tiered approach, but as far as defining the elements within the lease, that's not a part of the Sport and Rec strategy.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. I'm aware of some of the clubs that do have a sinking fund putting money aside, but those clubs also have exclusive use of the premises. So does the Harvey Bulls Lesnot Football Club have exclusive use, or are they expected to cover the costs for usage of other organisations?
So they have exclusive use over the leased premised area, which is the club rooms and change rooms, and if other groups were wanting to use that, it would obviously be at their discretion. However, it doesn't include the oval, just to note as well, in the leased premise area.
Councillor Brolin.
Okay, thank you. I guess my question here is this the most effective way of actually going down this track where clubs are paying a third, which seems to be a real old way to me of how we finance things? So is this going to me it could put some serious barriers in the way of clubs being viable. So I'm wondering, have we, just to come up with it, what about the viability of clubs to actually achieve what we're trying to get them to do here? And is there a better way of funding than this, given we've got $18,000 here, but in 20 years' time those lights might be 50 times more expensive than they are today. So looking down the track further, is there a better way of doing this?
I'll pass that to you, Kirsty.
I'll give that a little go if you like. So thank you, Councillor, and still through the Chair, we have provided some support to an internal group of officers who are working on that for this lease particularly. My previous comment in that not one size will fit all approach, noting the different sizes of communities, but for the HBL lease, they have just gone through this exact same process, but it isn't formally prescribed in their lease, so that's why that 1/3 model has been suggested for this particular lease.
No better ways.
I'm sure there will be plenty of better ways.
Councillor Cavani.
Sorry, I missed you before with the Harvey Bulls. There's no sinking fund for their lights when we recently did their lights up. Is that what you said?
Sorry, I didn't answer on Harvey Bulls. So the HBL Football Club, the Harvey Bulls does not have a sinking fund, no.
Right. So who else does have a sinking fund in the Shire as far as replacing things? Do the netball club at the Leschenault Centre or the basketball club, do they put in, or the juniors over here, or anywhere else?
Harvey Bowling Club does.
Councillor Coleman, can I just request with the synthetic greens at the Bowling Club, was that a requirement to have a sinking fund as part of funding that was provided to that? I'm aware that in other local governments, the Department of Sport and Rec requires sinking funds as part of providing funding, particularly for bowling green replacement. In regards to other community facilities in the Shire, no, there is not one that is in place at the moment formally through the Shire's leasing.
So what? Yes,
sorry.
Let
me just
I can remember
clarify.
Yarloop Bowling Club, when that came to council, that we put a requirement on them to put money aside for AstroTurf replacement. Then that was going to be my next question. Who audits it? Who checks from the Shire that that's actually happening?
Sure, so through the Chair, I can say there are a few other clubs and community groups, not just sporting clubs, who have varying levels of financial requirements within their lease agreements. So one that springs to mind that's come to council recently is the Binnenum Country Club. Their requirement explicitly states that all profit derived from their club activity will go into the maintenance of the centre through a reserve fund, so they actually can't keep any of their profit, it all goes into a reserve. And then there's other more informal arrangements through lease agreements which require us to cite financials, for example, to make sure that they can maintain financial viability. Generally, we set up contract reminders, as we do with all of our contracts, to receive that information, and our system will send us a little memo, and we check or request insurance documents, financials, etc., depending on the lease arrangements. I would say that we don't have a formal policy position from council, and we discussed that at ELT level last week, and there was consideration to adjusting the community lease policy to have a more formal arrangement, maybe a tiered system like other local governments have done, and to bring that to council. But for this particular lease, we met with the club yesterday, and it was advised that they already had a reserve account which they used for a similar purpose, and so that perhaps this arrangement wasn't new to their club. It was something that they were doing already, and very similar to clubs like the Harvey Football Club. They had a self-supporting loan for their lighting agreement through the Shire, but they keep aside money for other improvements such as the change rooms and things as well. So there are varying financial agreements amongst different community groups for different levels of input, I suppose, but no formal position from council.
Well, I had a fair bit to do as president of the club, putting that reserve amount to do this lighting upgrade, and the whole idea of the lighting upgrade was because we couldn't afford the $10,000 a year. It was costing us replacing globes for the lights. So the whole idea of this upgrade was so that the Shire upgraded the lights and then took over the ownership and maintenance of the lights. So my question is, I'm sorry I forgot your name, but you said earlier that the lease agreement with the Harvey Bulls is exclusively on the club. And usually that's what the lease agreements are, exclusively to do with the club and the club maintenance. Now, why should the Oval come into it now when the Oval is used by the Ag Society, the Sounds Country Music Festival will use it next year when they're working, the helicopter uses it for emergencies and all that? Why should the club be putting money aside, HBL in particular, for when other clubs use the Oval?
Through the chair, I don't have an answer to that other than it would be a council policy position. The reasoning for including this particular condition was because of the financial arrangements within the grant, and we were, I guess, indicated too that it would be necessary for ongoing arrangements of such kind as well.
So what, next question, what happens if the club just decides not to sign the agreement?
Through the chair, then it would be a position of council to decide if they would like to continue with the lease arrangement.
Yeah, that's all my questions.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just also add to that conversation about the Oval's not included in part of this lease? So this lease is purely around that building, and in conversation with the club just yesterday, we do identify that there is some major facility improvements that the club and the Shire have had some very early conversations about. So that would be one of the main things that we'd be looking at in the next 20 years, knowing that with hope it won't be lighting that we'll be also doing.
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. Just floating this one and interested in some comment back from staff in regards to peppercorn rent versus lease or rental payment by sporting clubs and community groups for the use of facilities. Because for years I know we've done the $1 peppercorn rent, but you know, is it worth reviewing that? And I know it'll be a council decision, but as Councillor Bronwyn was saying, you know, that's another method of getting an income as opposed to community groups and the like putting together reserve funds or the like. Just after a comment, that's all.
Through the chair, again, as you suggested, it would be a policy position of council. I guess the complexity of doing that is assigning a fair value to our buildings, and whether you would calculate that on a discounted commercial rate or something similar, it might be difficult for those community groups that are less financial, but perhaps in a highly marketable area, to meet requirements in a fair way for rent if we're looking at, you know, a higher level of, I guess, financial consideration for the lease agreement. I suppose it could be done, and I know we've done our land optimisation strategy, and that might be a way that we can feed in that information to the value, but really we're looking at the intrinsic value that the club provides as well as what we're providing them in a, you know, in a commercial sense in terms of rent. So I'm not sure how we would do that. It would be a complicated exercise, and it might be just based on the financial ability of the club to pay, or it would be potentially a user pay system where it's the value of the premises. I'm not sure, but it would be a policy consideration.
Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to answer the CEO's query before, my understanding is that when Harvey Bowling Club got their first synthetic green, probably about 10 years ago now, there was a condition put on there that there was some money put aside for a replacement on a basis of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this was before my time, but on the basis that the club would be responsible for a third, the Shire, who owns the premises, would be responsible for about a third, and it's up to the club and the Shire to work together to obtain external funding for the other third. And so the bowling club, having 2 synthetic greens now, is putting considerable money aside because those greens are $250,000 each. They've just been extended to a life of 25 years, thank goodness. You know, that's a considerable amount of money, and the club's also looking at one stage there of doing fundraising to build or extend new club rooms as well. So I think from having been the president of the bowling club for some time, I guess on the capacity to pay for any organisation, it's actually a really good discipline for the finance committees of those organisations to be aware of what their asset's worth and plan towards it at an executive level. That's not to suggest, Councillor Carboni, that everyone has to pay the same amount, but I think the discipline there of putting money aside and recognising the value of the asset in the long term is probably a good exercise for the various organisations.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Dickinson.
Yes, I just have a question in relation to the lease is for the building only, and HBL aren't the only organisation, but they've got sponsorship signs up around the Oval, and other rec grounds do as well. So how does that get managed if they don't have a lease agreement over the Oval, and yet they, I believe, have organised and maintained the sponsorship signage around the Oval? How is that managed, and how is that dealt with?
Through the chair, so we can apply conditions outside of the leased area in terms of the premise in consideration of us providing them that leased area. So it's an agreement that we form in consideration of providing them with the asset. In terms of putting the sign up, I know that there are certain DA rules and those sorts of application processes that occur, so that's how they physically end up generally on the fencing. But yeah, it is just a condition of the lease. It doesn't have to be within the lease area to form part of that conditional approval.
But it's not identified in this lease agreement, is it?
Through the chair, signage is part of the lease agreement.
But on the Oval?
Not specifically of the Oval, however signage is addressed in the lease agreement.
But if you look at the map, the area that is identified to represent the lease area is the building only.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got signage on the fence which is around the Oval, which is outside that area that is identified by that red line.
Through the chair, the signage does at the moment apply to the premised area, the leased premises of area. However, as Courtney mentioned, the signage can be applied in a condition supplementary to that of the Oval if that's to be included.
Sorry, I could just elaborate to that further. Otherwise, the usual process for through the chair is to apply for a permit to hang the signage if not included in the lease area, which happens regularly.
Councillor Bromham.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. To Chrissy Davies. You mentioned before other local governments and how they manage this, and I wondered if you could give us some understanding around how that's done where people have similar facilities to ours.
Through the chair, so in relation particularly to the whole lease or just to the sinking fund component? Can I clarify?
Yeah, I'm talking about the sinking fund and how they manage or finance lighting the ovals and the club facilities as well, because I see them all connected really. As far as the club is concerned, that's what they use. So, you know, so if you've got a similar facility in Perth or Harvey or in Mandurah, how are they actually managing this so clubs can afford to utilise the facilities effectively?
Thank you for clarifying that. I can confirm that it is ordinary practice across all local governments, most local governments, to have a similar process, policy and lease conduct to encourage clubs to have a reserve that will put money aside that will contribute to the future improvements to major infrastructure and facilities specific to that club that are fundamental to that club operating in the way it likes to.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Capriato.
Thanks, Mr. President. While we're splitting hairs, why, if the lease is for the building, why does the document that I'm reading refer to the land? It says here that the leaseholder agrees that it shall ensure that the land is available by the leaseholder during each hire period, and so on. It refers to the land. It doesn't refer to it at any time. I can't see where it refers to the building. It talks about the land. Is that just, have I got the terminology wrong? Or
Sure.
if I was reading it, I'd say, well, I'm leasing the facility, which is the land, which is the oval, which is every part of that, even though there's a red line around the building.
Through the chair, so the lease is for a portion of the land, which includes the building inside the red line on the diagram. So through the chair, it is the land that we are leasing, which happens to have the building and premise on it. Yeah.
Councillor Beach.
Yeah, I need reminding the number of clubs that use the National Recreation Park, for example, and extensive lighting up there. Will they be captured in this new policy that was sort of hinted at a little bit earlier to help replace those when the time comes? Because as far as I know, they don't at the moment, but I'm not sure.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Chair. Currently, we are aware that the clubs at the National Recreation Park do make a contribution to lights, and it is our anticipation that the strategy and the policy supporting that will be a pick-up across all sporting lighting infrastructure across the Shire.
And thank you. And the other point I'd like to make, just picking up on Councillor Campbell, sorry I'm taking you on a historic journey at the minute, but a long time ago clubs were on this peppercorn $1 lease thing, and then the council of the day decided that they would have a per capita payment from each club. So if you had 10 members, you only paid, say, $10. If you had 100 members, you paid $100. But what that did, it meant that the clubs decided they were no longer going to have any working bees cleaning up change rooms, doing what they do to make sure that their sport functioned correctly. They expected the Shire staff to do all of that for them. It wasn't long before that was sort of reversed and we went back to exactly what we're doing now. So we have to be careful when we start saying, can clubs contribute more to the land that we make available? So I just bring that up as a point for discussion whenever you discuss it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks Renee.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 5.1.2, local government reforms, local government advisory board submission. Is there any questions, councillors? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. What happens if we go down the road of, let's just say we approve the officer's recommendation and then this doesn't actually go through to become law? Are we obliged to still reduce our numbers if Minister Carey's motion doesn't get passed?
Rescind it.
Through the chair, I would say no. We have done a ward and representation review, and that still follows the existing legislative requirements for that review. So it could be argued that, considering we have done the review under the current legislative framework, that it would be still supported. However, the overwhelming comments from those who selected to have 9 councillors, and the reason why I suppose the comments even look a little bit negative even though they were choosing 9, was that there was a preference to remain at 13. So the officer's recommendation would essentially change in that regard, in that it would support 13 and not 9.
Councillor Boyle.
Can I just ask, at the election, so we're going down to 11, what happens if we have 3 councillors choose to retire or not continue? Are we then filling 1 space and that goes into that term to go over, or will we just sit at 10 and just drop 1 more at the next election? I mean, what's the process there?
Through the chair. So it's still an ordinary election cycle. So the amount of seats that are vacant will remain vacant. So regardless of if councillors resign and don't run again, we'd still be running, I think, 7 seats, which would be reduced to 5 in this election period.
Any other questions? Okay, item number 5.1.3, Corporate Business Plan 2022 to 2023, Quarterly Report, Quarter 2. Any questions? Councillors. Item 5.2, 5.2.1, temporary road closure, Paris Road at Forest Highway. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. Are we likely to be held responsible for any financial compensation to Spudshed because of the disruption to their business?
Through the chair, highly unlikely. I mean, basically, it's really a formality under the Local Government Act that we have to advertise and determine the matter. But item C of the officer's recommendation is all costs associated with closure associated works were borne by the South West Gateway Alliance. So when I said all costs associated with closure, if someone puts in a claim,
okay,
that's a cost.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Crispin.
We're opening the promenade extension on the 3rd of February. Do we have an ETA of like what day specifically we're going to be closing the Paris Road?
Yeah, look, what's going to happen as soon as the promenade is open, I think the following Monday, Paris Road is going to be closed.
Yeah. I know obviously that they need to obviously close, there's no choice in the matter, but diversion when it comes to obviously the development up there with bringing in sand and everything, that's going to be coming down through obviously the Treendale main centre. They would obviously, if anything needs to be happening there, or say for instance the roundabout gets damaged due to trucks or anything like that, that would be covered under them if that does occur.
Yeah, look, we're actually meeting some major players there next week to talk about alternative routes and any main roads. Have spent a fair bit of time doing swept paths for RAV vehicles around all those roundabouts. So we're actually meeting on site to mark out any curbing that we feel needs to be removed now, and to make sure that they don't damage anything by using those alternative routes. And then obviously any reinstatements and all that, once Paris Road's open again, will be undertaken and paid for by Main Roads or South West Alliance. We're meeting there next week to discuss exactly that.
Oh, that's good, that was main thing. Thank you.
Councillor Lovett.
Thank you. What kind of strategies for signage have we got going in so that people are aware prior to the closures and the alternate routes so that there's less confusion?
Yeah, well, look, we've been liaising with their communications people and obviously put them in touch with our communications people, and all that is really in their court in terms of signage, communicating and whatnot. The recommendation mentions ensuring that all emergency services, school, bus operators, factory residents, business advisors, proposal outline suitable alternative routes. So, yeah, look, obviously they're required to advertise and let everyone know. And we'll post something on our website and through the normal sort of media, but really it's their project. We're just a little cog in the wheel here in terms of the local government act.
Yeah, I think that's partly what, I mean, I know that we can put it onto ours to assist that, to share the information. The amount of incorrect information that's being bandied around the community at the moment is quite scary. And I just think for people, particularly people who are leaving, going in and out, I think Kingston's probably going to be more affected than Treendale because of the change of route that people are going to have to take to get to Forest Highway. But I also think the traffic implications for Treendale, I mean, obviously it's not part of their project, that's part of us having to manage those, and that's the signage and things. So I was thinking is there signage or communication or that we can start to put out now, because it's only a fortnight, and they're going to have to get their heads around it, and also for business and community and Treendale with additional traffic flow, and the Kingston area, and even the other part along between Leisure and Paris. It's going to be a lot of impacts on those that I think we need to get communicating quite early.
Yeah, look, obviously the attachment shows the plan that went out through the advertising period. It's probably not a bad plan for some maybe post on our website. But look, I'll take that on board and discuss that with their communications people. Obviously there's going to be obviously every time you do something there's a little bit of confusion and so on, but I think things will just then settle down and people find their ways to go.
Yeah.
I was thinking this morning, it's only a year, and we've been, 3 years of COVID, 20, 21 and 22, so it's only a year, so a year goes pretty quickly. But yeah, look, it's how we manage it. I think most people are aware that it's happening, but yeah, I take your comment, and I think that's a good plan to post on our website, and also I'll discuss that with the communications people.
If we can ask their communication team to make sure that information on Forest Highway for people that would normally turn into Paris Road, that needs to be signposted quite well and notified, because it's already a very messy intersection at the moment, and for people that are on their standard run from Perth that just go down and then turn right and can't, that's a potential accident site when they veer back out to keep going on Forest Highway. So if we can ask them to communicate that and to signpost that early, that there's no right turn at Paris Road, that'll save a few issues as well.
Yeah, and also one of the conditions is a comprehensive traffic management plan. As part of that plan, they have to submit that to us, and then we can put conditions on. So, yeah.
That'd be good.
Any other questions? Councillor Brom.
Yeah, just one, obviously this will probably increase traffic coming down the Old Coast Road as well, because getting across Reading, that's going to be an issue at that end. And I was wondering, there's going to be an impact on the Australian light industrial area with a big increase in traffic and being able to access that area. And I wondered if we looked at any alternative route to get into that industrial area to make it more viable.
That was my question.
What, via Forest Highway? Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't got the answer.
Yeah, no, that hasn't been looked at. Not that I'm aware of.
Councillor Beach.
Yeah, just to follow up from that, my question was any consideration ever given to pushing through Ditchingham Road into Forest Highway, or even the old part of Parish Road, which is now Leisure Road, opposite Clifton Park, Clifton Road. But I noticed today there's a fair bit of vegetation there. That
yeah, look, I think punching Leisure Drive through to be a hue and cry for residents in that area, especially the people at the end there. Ditchingham Place.
only temporarily I'm talking about, not.
Yeah, Ditchingham Place. I mean, like it's opposite Raymond Road. I mean, Castle Tower up at Leisure. Yeah, Ditchingham. I mean, you end up at almost a T intersection on Forest Highway, and there's a signalised intersection just a little bit further down. I mean, the roads that are planned as detours are the local distributor, the district distributor roads are designed to take the higher volumes of traffic, whereas Leisure Drive and Ditchingham aren't. So, yeah, I mean, we're only talking a small extra travel distance, and once the intersection's completed, it'll save them so much time going east-west. So I think it's just one of those things.
Any other questions?
Just a quick one. I think the bigger concern's Barnes Avenue and the Old Coast Road intersection, Paris Road intersection down here, especially at school times once school goes back. Where the problems, so I'm just wondering, are we going to put counters there on a camera or something to check that out? It's just about due for lights as it is now without this going on.
Yeah, look, obviously, you know, you can do spend a lot of money doing a traffic model with predictions of where everyone's going to go and what they're going to do and what the volume's going to be, and that's very expensive. There's a lot of assumptions that go into that. I suppose until it happens, we won't know, and we'll probably just have to monitor. And yeah, you're right. Probably deploy some, and that's something I can raise with main roads. I've got more vehicle classifiers.
I see they've got those little cameras now everywhere.
Yeah, I've got all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's probably a good point in terms of what is going to be the impact. We may find that it's minimal. We may find it's major, and we might have to implement some measures to address some of the issues. But yeah, no, it is a good point. But once it happens, we'll know what's happening. It's almost like it's like the dust. You know, you land in a clear pond, and all the sediment comes up, and you can't see a thing. And then when it settles, it's all clear. And people know, okay, I'm going to go this way. I'm not going to go that way. Yeah, it's hard to predict.
Okay, any other further questions? Okay, 5.3. 5.3.1, proposed land divestment and request for management order to the Shire of Harvey. Any questions, councillors? Item number 5.3.2, recreation vehicle friendly trial. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, and I just want to say that, you know, I'm very supportive of this RV trial. I just have some concerns about the suggested location in Brunswick Junction, that it's located next to a resident, and I'm just asking whether they've actually been consulted about this overnight stay option for that site.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so a mail out was actually sent out to all the residents in the area, but we're also going to be now doing another one direct with the residents again, sort of over this weekend, to provide some further feedback from them, but they have all been written to in that area.
That was when the site was at the showgrounds, not...
Yep, so that's what I'm saying, so when we sent that out before, but now that the site's changed, we will actually do a direct engagement with that resident.
And I suppose, following up from that, I'm still quite supportive of it being at the Brunswick Showgrounds. So, and I understand that in the report it indicated the change of site because of the possible damage to the retip in the grass area. But I'm seeking advice whether, you know, it can still be down where Sideshow Alley goes, and whether adequate signage so that it specifies that area, and of course the dump point is at the showground as well. So that's why I'm erring more towards retaining the Brunswick Showgrounds as a site. And then further to that, I find out that the Brunswick Caravan Park currently uses the showgrounds as an overflow for their park as well, which I wasn't aware of, and there's concerns that should the RV free overnight parking be at the showgrounds, that it will be an impediment against their business. So I'm just confirming whether that is actually the case in regards to the Brunswick Caravan Park, that they use the showgrounds as an overflow, and is it possible that the signage could stipulate the actual area in the showgrounds? Yes, that's right.
So
and that would be monitored as well.
So through Mr. Chair, so there was a few more sort of components to your question.
Yes, I know. Sorry, it's just all
that's
fine.
So look, to spatially define position or a location within the showgrounds is something that we could look at, and it would give us the capacity to actually manage it a bit better. The park owner, caravan park owner, has still raised concern that it is actually a potentially impacting component to their business. It's not always the caravan park that is actually the driving force behind those group bookings. It's often groups that come to us that say, we want to go to Brunswick and stay there. So when that happens and they come to us to actually ask for permission to use the showgrounds, we get written confirmation from the caravan park that they don't have the capacity to accommodate them. If they do have the capacity, they go there. If they don't, then they come to the showgrounds. So that's how that sort of has played out over the last sort of couple of years. And as far as the discussions that we've had with the park owner and Ag Society, it sort of seems to be more amiable at the moment to use those the bays on the other side of the highway where the museum was supposed to go. Thought I'd get a reaction, so that's sort of where the sort of scenario is at this stage. But happy to continue talking whether or not the showgrounds in a more confined area is still acceptable.
Councillor Crispin.
Just two questions. The first question was car park north of Ridley Place, Old Coast Road, Australian. Is that referring to the Eco Museum, which we pushed through last time? Second question was, it just says on here that endorses the Christina Street Reserve, Old Coast Road, Australian as the alternative site to the Leisure Estuary Eco Museum. What was the reasoning to that?
Okay, so the Eco Museum is where the jetty is.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and the Ridley Place Northern Car Park is that one where the new sculpture has been put in, and where we've got the Christmas tree in that area there. So note that site doesn't meet any of our criteria from a safety point of view. Eco Museum was the preferred option of council because it was more tucked away and it wasn't potentially overcrowding the current usage that occurs at Christina Street. Unfortunately, with the jetty works being brought forward to sort of February, they're going to be doing that for about a 9-month project. So that's actually going to be a lay-down area for construction. So we've defaulted back to the Christina Street where the toilet blocks, playground and coffee van are. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Councillor Dickinson.
With the Christina Street site though, if we have a high tide or a lot of rain, it gets very boggy there and it does get congested with the current use of coffee van there. So is there, was a concern about the space, which is why we didn't support it originally. Isn't that still going to be the case now?
Through Mr. Chair, so the likely flooding that occurs in a high tide or a storm event is around where that coffee van is. It's not as much up around near the toilet block, and so that gravel shoulder that's near the where the dump point's been put in, where the asphalt driveway is now, in staff's opinion, should be suitable for it, and we don't consider it to be an area that would get inundated. I don't think we're in a potential. I don't think we've got the ability to actually respond to the sort of the concerns over overcrowding or sort of extra usage. It will need to be monitored to make sure that we've only got those 3 sites there being used. And if it's becoming congested and becoming a problem, then we'll know that through our regular monitoring and also through ranger engagement as well. And you'll also know that there's a 6-monthly reporting requirement that will bring that to our attention a lot quicker than the 12 months.
Councillor Crispin.
Just one more thing on the, because 3 sites available, is it a possible thing that we could actually line mark those 3 sites? So in that way, rather than overcrowding happening, we've already got this line mark, someone's going to pull in, not available, move on.
Yeah, look, I've been working with the tourism people to look at what sites and line marking we can do.
Yep.
Obviously, if it's a gravel surface, it's a bit difficult to line mark, but you know, if it's a sea
Paints every day.
Yeah, but we're still looking at maybe treating that gravel surface.
Yep.
Out of our maintenance budget. Yeah, so.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, item 5.4. 5.4.1, list of accounts paid December 2022. Have any questions, councillors? Item number 5.4.2, financial statement as at 31st of December 2022. Any questions? Okay, item 5.5 is nil. Item 6, notice of motion for following meeting. Nil. Item 7, matters behind closed doors. Okay, back to item 8, closure of meeting. Thank everyone for their attendance and look forward to everyone being present next week. Close the meeting at